And now presenting the Safe State, Umurangi Generation. This game is property of the United Nations. Do you just want to talk more Warhammer? Because I kind of do.
I'm trying to switch tracks.
Yeah, I know. I got to put these guys just over here. All right.
Now I'm like, man, what box do I have all my Warhammer in? Like,
I feel like I kind of started something.
Well, this is not the news segment, but recently, so if you know anything about Warhammer fans, is that they are not necessarily the sanest or most gregarious group of people.
Mm.
One big fighting point has just been like the lack of female representation in Warhammer in general, and specifically with like the fact that Warhammer 40k is 80% Space Marines, which are like incel dude monks.
Mm-hmm.
So there's been like some interest in like by some people in trying to like get some female Space Marines.
Some inclusion.
Yeah, which has not gone well. Every time they mention it, everyone, like, you know, people crap themselves on the internet.
Are you saying a bunch of neckbeards are having a problem with inclusion and representation in their gaming space? Because I don't believe that.
That's Anyway, so, like, if you know Space Marines, they're, like, genetically modified super soldiers. Mm-hmm. But above them are the Adeptus Custodes, who are, like, the Emperor's personal bodyguard, and they're, like, even more genetically modified super soldiers. And recently, something came out that there are 2 Adeptus Custodes who are, in fact, females.
It's a female!
Oh.
So everyone's just, like, decided that that's... Not everyone, I shouldn't say everyone. There's a lot of discussion, a lot of very, very polite and kind discussion going on right now about that.
I'm sure. I'm sure. I just don't know why people care about that stuff. Like, I just don't get it.
Well, because Malore, they're ruining the lore by putting ladies in there because...
Then is the lore that just, like, females don't exist anymore? It's just men are the only thing that exist and we just, like, clone or something? Like...
Well, no, I think the problem was there was, like... Warhammer started off as like a pastiche of sci-fi stuff. You know, it was like making fun of Dune and stuff. So it was very, and also it was the 80s, and this was anyway, it all got crystallized and kind of Disneyified as like they moved away from the parody and they moved away from like the over-the-top, like ultra-violence, like Judge Dredd type stuff, and kind of just made it. I shouldn't say Disneyified, they Marvelified it, I guess. But like it also like they stopped trying to do anything interesting with it. So any introduction of like a lady character for the last 20 years has had to be like carefully written in some like it's gross. It's ick. Like the only female characters in 40k are like the sexy battle bondage nuns. Like
great. Good.
Which, like, again, in the 80s makes sense if you're, like, pastiching sci-fi and comic book tropes and stuff like that. But, like, you're not doing pastiche anymore. You're not trying to parody these genres. You're just the genre now. So, not that I don't like the Sisters of Battle.
Yeah, it definitely has the Fight Club effect to it, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Or the American Psycho effect also.
Yeah,
like,
Jesus. Oh, God. Well, good. I'm glad there's more women in I don't care about any of it. Like,
yeah.
I'm looking at my Space Marine that I just put the first base coat on, and there could be anyone under this armor. Anyone. I didn't even consider that some of these weren't already women. And like, this Tyranid, like, what the fuck is that? Where's its genitals? Like, who knows? Who cares? They probably adapt that. Their genitals just change depending on what they need.
I think canonically, like, they're like bees, where like they just have one female and like a gajillion billion males.
I do like that idea. Like, that's always been a fascinating thing that we have real life Pokemon in like bees and ants. where it's just like, well, we just feed them differently and they evolve into a different kind. What? Yeah, we need some soldiers, we give them this. We need some workers, we give them that food. It's wild.
Literally.
Yes.
But speaking of grim sci-fi,
and almost as clean a transition as when we were talking about paint schemes earlier.
Yeah, that could have been smarter. That was all lost. So we played, as well, by looking at the title of this podcast, Umurangi Generation, a game I have been meaning to play for 4 years now, and I finally got around to it.
And a game I didn't know existed.
Yeah, like it's a weird little game.
Mm-hmm.
So what did you think of this going into it? I don't know what I told you what it was or anything like that. I guess what I should say, this is like Pokemon Snap for kids who watch too much Evangelion, I guess.
And if you had said that to me when we started it, I probably would have like tried to find more time to cram in some play sessions with it. Like last night when I was really frustrated from work and decided to like do some base coat painting on some Warhammer figures, I would have just played this. Like it gave me the same brain shut off, just in the moment vibes that I was looking for. And man, it's fun. It's really fun. So it's this point and shoot game taking place. It's not quite Pokemon Snap though, is it? Because it's not on rails.
No.
Which
honestly,
I like
the
more.
thing that reminded me the most of like the way it works is almost like a Tony Hawk.
Yes.
Or I mean, it also, like, I think even in a lot of the way the models work, they kind of homage Sega rollerblading game music.
Jet Set Radio.
Jet Force.
Yeah.
Jet Set Radio. Thank you.
Yes, obviously Jet Set Radio, huge influence on this. That was apparent immediately. Yeah.
I kept wanting to say Jet Force Gemini, and I'm like, no, that's not it.
No, but great game.
So like you dropped out into a level. You have to fulfill these bounties. Like you have to take pictures of these certain things. It's just like kind of each level is kind of a diorama of like a part of this futuristic town, which is all very New Zealander / anime effect. Like I don't know. It's hard to talk about. Like a lot of it's very visual, and it's very interesting to look at.
Hyper stylized visuals, which can become even more stylized by taking the photos. I really like that aspect of it, where every time you're taking a photo, you can right in the moment adjust the exposure, the tint, all of that to get exactly the mood you're going for.
And you can unlock more as you go. Like there's like all kinds more filters and effects, and you get lenses as you level up. So you have all kinds of different, and then that's where like the puzzle aspect tends to set in, where you have to like take a picture of this really close up thing, but with your telescopic lens, and it's like, oh, I have to figure out what position.
How can I get into focus in this? Yeah,
exactly. And that's really well done.
Every stage has a postcard shot in an area, and I was frustrated at first because I was like, I'm taking the shot, like, but I wasn't using the right lens. The focus was a little bit different, like. It's a little forgiving, but you got to get things pretty close. And I'm not someone who, like, I take a lot of photos with my phone, like when I'm on nature hikes and stuff, but I don't have a camera. I've never done photography. So this felt a little daunting at first, but they've gamified it enough where pretty quickly I was getting it. I think my biggest hurdle was, especially like I get dropped into that first stage and everything's so interesting. I'm just wanting to snap photos of everything. And then I just noticed like hit escape to see your objectives. And I was like, there's objectives. And then I noticed the timer's going on. I'm like, oh no, I have to get this done in 10 minutes. And I'm stressing out. And I finally, by the time I got to the second stage, I was like, doesn't matter. I can always go back and try to complete the objectives in under 10 minutes. Let's just exist in the world and enjoy it.
Exactly. Like that, like that's why I think I've made me think of Tony Hawk. Is like that timer's like yeah, you have that timer, but it's not. I mean, also with Tony Hawk, that's when the level ends, is when the timer runs out. Yeah. This is just your bonus timer. It would have been nice to have a way to turn that off. Maybe it's like an option, just to
where you could just live in the world. Yeah, absolutely. Those games make me stressed for like on rails and timers. I do not like, or a platformer that has forced movement of the screen. I'm not a fan of that
Auto-scrollers.
stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, no, like I'm. This game I was expecting to like be more of a. I generally don't like to play first-person games with a controller. Like I think it always feels weird to me. But the controls for this were definitely optimized for your controller, like what buttons you're pressing to switch between different lenses and the action buttons and stuff like it. It felt really good, especially like the aim is one trigger and then snap the photo is the other trigger. That felt way better to me on a controller than it did on keyboard and mouse.
See, my instinct was to go controller, and for like the first screen, it had both the mouse and keyboard and controller options up. But when I actually went into the tutorial, it was just mouse and keyboard. It didn't give me any controller stuff. So I was like, I guess they want me to play with a mouse and keyboard. So that's what I did, which it's fine. Like I that's how I play first person shooters generally anyways. But I don't know. I did want to play with a controller.
Yeah, I mean, it actually worked out pretty well. The game itself does some really interesting. You have to do like a lot of first person platforming, which could be a little suspect, but at the same time, there's like this. It almost reminded me, in some ways, it reminded me of Paradise Killer, not just because of its like hyper stylization, but like there's like this understanding that like you could just walk out on like a clothesline. Like we understand that that's geometry and this is a first person thing, and you can just that wouldn't be a thing you'd normally be able to walk on, but that's how this game is going to work. And I think Paradise Killer kind of operated on a similar level where it's the geometry of the real world versus the geometry of the known level setting isn't the same. Like I know perfectly well that I can't stand on a power line or a clothesline or whatever, but like I know in a video game if I see that, chances are I can walk across that. And you kind of had to in some situations. You
do, and that's so funny because it's something I noticed right in the beginning was how much inspiration it got from platformers and that language of video games where, you're right, I didn't even think about it. I just started hopping up onto like little bits of chain link fence and little like flag poles and things like that, like sticking off of buildings. I just instinctively knew that's something I was going to be able to do. And yeah, that's an interesting aspect of having video game brain.
Yeah. And like the way they do detail in this game, it's like it's very low poly, like stylistically low poly with like not particularly detailed textures, but at the same time there is so much detail in almost everything. Like yeah, if you stand facing a wall and zoom the camera into the wall texture, you're not going to see stuff. But like at the same time, if you look at every newspaper is going to have text on it. Every can, every like food box, you can zoom in and see like the text on it. And initially you'll think like all the NPCs look the same, but as you get closer, you realize some of them have different like outfits. Some of them have different things like written on their T-shirts, like. Even like cars, you'll initially think like, oh, that's just a plane. Like there's just some cars there. But the more you look at it, the more you zoom in, you'll see like, oh, they have different things written on them, and different signs will have different things. And there are so many different posters and graffiti and all that jazz. Like it really is meant to. Because it's a photography game, right? Like you're not. This isn't meant for jumping around. Like you're meant to zoom in and take pictures of stuff, and they did a really good job with that.
Although I did jump around a lot and got some great like action shots mid-jump of like exactly what I wanted to get a shot of, and it wasn't even an objective. It was just like, oh, I want to take a picture of that. That would look cool from this angle, which that was nice.
That was one of the interesting things about this game is like it puts you into this mindset where you just want to take cool pictures of stuff as opposed to like actually like that's never been something I've never really thought about doing in a video game. But then like, what if I lie down right here and kind of take a picture of this thing through the tires of the car? Like,
even games that like I guess a couple times with the Spider-Man's games, I would do that. Like it would be that like golden hour and I'm swinging around New York and the Empire State Building somewhere in the background, or I'm near, like I would go into photo mode and I'd try like a couple cool filters and take a shot. And then that's it. Like You have a camera the whole time, and I'm not thinking about that. Pokemon Snap, same idea. Like, I'm not going to waste one of my limited shots on something that isn't an objective.
Exactly.
And this doesn't have that to it. It's really nice.
Well, it does have like limited film, but like you can find film, so it's never. I never felt like I was like up against it with like the amount of shots I had.
No, even before I realized there was a limit to film, like I think I had like one shot left I could have taken in the first stage, and I'd gotten all the objectives already. So I was like, oh, cool. Well, I did that one. Glad I didn't screw myself over there, but you know, it's just really interesting how. I don't know. It's got all the aspects of a first-person shooter that I like, but without all the violence, and I really appreciate that. Like it feels good walking around, and especially on mouse and keyboard because of that. It was instinctive. Like, oh, control is crouch. You know, I've got Q and E as my lean buttons. Like, I play enough of these. I know how this works, and it was all of that for me, and I enjoyed that a lot as the control scheme for it. I think controllers still would have been a little more ergonomic, but I don't know. There was something really nice about like, oh, hey, this is a peaceful game that I can just like. Well, peaceful's not quite the right word, right? Because there's some dark tones to it.
There's a story to this game that gets played out in the background. Like it's all these little scenes that are kind of happening, but like there is stuff going on, and it's actually pretty bleak. Yeah, like, I think I could, like I mentioned Evangelion, and I am not an animesman, but I've seen enough Evangelion to know what it's about, and I feel like that was a pretty big inspiration on this, just like a lot of doom and kaiju.
Yeah. Yeah.
But all this stuff is going down around you, and I don't want to like spoil stuff, but like it always is focusing on like a small group of people, like the terrarium essentially of the level that you're in always focuses on like a set group of people, and sometimes you revisit the same group of people from different levels as different things are happening, and it really kind of like humanizes stuff that you're not going to get from like a lot of video games or movies that deal with this sort of thing, like whether it's a cyberpunk thing or like I mentioned the kind of kaiju stuff. They tend to focus on big picture stuff, and this is all big picture, all little picture. Like it's all like just, you know, you feel like a war correspondent or whatever, you know, trying to get
you're on the ground instead of the 10,000-foot view,
exactly,
or whatever 30,000, whatever the saying is. You know, one of the interesting things I found was starting right off in like the second stage, because the first stage I didn't realize you could go up to people and get them to pose, and
some people,
right. And the second stage, again, not trying to like divulge much, but there's certain groups of people that you cannot interact with and others that you can, and that's just another little, like they could have had it where everyone would pose, right? But making the choice where certain people won't, it's subtle storytelling that I really appreciated. I really appreciated that.
Yeah, there's a lot of that subtle storytelling, I mean.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of little details everywhere.
Yeah. And the music I is really what turned me on to this game. It's by a YouTube creator named Thor High Heels. It's
wonderful.
To me, yeah. Well, I think it does such a good job of being like familiar, but at the same time like futuristic. Like it feels like, oh yeah, I could see this being like what the young punks are listening to in 10, 20 years, because it feels like stuff that I like. Oh yeah, I can recognize some like samples or something of this, or like the way he uses a lot of like drum and bass beats, which are becoming more popular these days. But it's like just that weird enough, and just that like, I don't want to say atonal, but like almost arrhythmic in sometimes, where it's like, this feels weird to me, but like I can imagine this being like future music. One of my favorite bits, there's a level in I think it might have been in the DLC, I don't remember, but you're in like a casino or like a club, and they have, one of the objectives is to take a picture of the DJ for the song. It's like DJ Tariq, and you're like, who's DJ Tariq? and then you realize it's a dolphin that they've like plugged electrodes in, and he's like, it's like some sort of
fantastic
AI dolphin DJ. Very, very fun.
Love it. Oh, that's great. Yeah, the music does a really good job of amplifying the kind of zen-like quality of the game. Like it does something, at least to my brain, which just disrupted my like outer voice train of thought. Like I was able to just solely focus in on the game and not think about work stuff or anything else that's like going on in life that, you know, I'm normally just constantly playing through in my head in any other given circumstance. It was very therapeutic in that way.
Yeah. And like one thing about like having all these little details and like having these like extra objectives is that it actually gives you a lot of like replayability, which is not something I like find all that important. But like when you go back to levels to try and say like, oh, I'm going to try and do this, or I'm going to get this objective, like you find stuff you didn't see the first time you played it or the second time you played it.
Well, now you have more tools in your arsenal too. You've got new lenses and things that you can utilize. So yeah, no, for sure. It's fun. It's a short game, but it's fun. I haven't even finished all of it yet, but I'm going to because it's very enjoyable.
Yeah, the ending is something.
Oh boy.
I think I played it in like 3 or 4 hours. Like, and I felt like I got like the main, all the story bits and everything. Like it was a good time. Really small dev team, really impressive what they managed.
I always love to see that when it's a small dev team and they knock it out of the park. I'm always impressed by that.
Yeah, just like, I mean, not to like get to auteur theory and crap like that, but like you can really see like there's just like a singular vision for like what it's supposed to look like that is in every aspect of the game. Like there isn't stuff that doesn't work with stuff. There isn't there's no one, that doesn't seem like anyone was cutting any corners anywhere, and everyone kind of, everything made sense. Like this poster exists in the same world as this boombox, as the same world as this guy's haircut.
Yes.
You know, that all felt very cohesive.
That did, and you could tell the people designing it, especially designing the mechanics of the camera, are huge photography nerds. Like it's not a perfect camera simulator, but it gets the point across on how to use a camera properly to get shots. And because of that, and because of how simple it made all of that, I found myself taking weird photos too, like not just of like, oh, that would be neat, but like, what does it look like if I just turn this thing fully on its side and like really flip the image around in weird ways, like manipulate things to a point where it's almost unrecognizable from what it was. But I don't know. There was a fun artistic side of it that I never really get to explore, that it allowed me to explore very accessibly, I should say.
Yeah. Yeah, like I think I mentioned like Tony Hawk, and I think that there's like, this is to photography as Tony Hawk is to skateboarding. Like, yeah, this is it isn't really analogy. what you're actually gonna do, but you get like this kind of, oh, this is why people find this to be really fun, you know?
Yep.
But yeah, it's a good game. I would definitely recommend checking out. I don't want to, like, the problem is like there's so much of it that is hard to talk about because it's very visual and very stylized. Yes. And like I felt a lot with this game that it's hard to talk about because I don't want to spoil it. Like I think you should experience this game for yourself. But definitely worth checking out.
Yeah. Short and sweet game, and so are our thoughts on it, I think.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of, we've had this problem before where you were just like, this is a really good game, don't know what much to say about it. Like, yeah, that's kind of the problem.
We can gush a bunch, but at a certain point we'll just say the same thing over and over.
Right. Like we end up talking way more about games we don't like than games we do, because like there's just more things to pick at.
I mean, I'm still going to make you play Silver Surfer for the NES one day.
Sure.
We'll have a lot to talk about with that.
I don't know, man. When you made us play Beetlejuice, like we ended up talking about a lot of things that wasn't Beetlejuice.
That's fair.
It's still our worst episode.
Oh God, that was a nightmare of a game. I hate it so much.
It's a nightmare of an edit.
Yeah, I bet.
All right. Shall we take a quick break, and then come back with some news.
Okay.
And we're back.
Oh my God. I'm good. My stomach today is so loud.
Is it?
Yeah, there's some leftover potatoes and steak in the fridge, and I'm going to make a hash out of it once we're done recording. Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be real good. So... Oh, do you have something?
I have some news. I have breaking news. Breaking news. This just came out an hour ago. The Embracer Group is done embracing things. They have shattered into 3 pieces, never to be repaired again.
Scattered to the 3 corners of the earth, and we know it's 3 because it's a flat triangle. That's just science.
So, but basically there's going to be 3 companies coming out of this. One is going to focus on board games and non-video game content. One is going to be indie games and like AA games. And the third company, which will be like the more straight continuity from Embracer, will be Big IP Company. The names of these companies will be Asmodee Group for the board games, etc. Coffee Stain and Friends will be the name of their indie label. And then the main company will be Middle-earth Enterprises and Friends. And Friends is not something I'm editorializing. That is literally what they're called.
I'm seeing an article right here, right now for it. Those are the names they chose. Asmodee Group, fine. I don't love the Group and Friends add-ons on stuff, and I really hate hearing Middle-earth Enterprises.
And Friends.
That feels so soulless.
I know, yeah, it's ick.
Coffee Stain and Friends for their indie stuff also feels like they didn't even try. They were like, I don't know, indie, Seattle, like Coffee Stain, boom, done, move on.
Well, Coffee Stain was one of the OG companies that Embracer
Was
Group.
it?
But yeah, they've been around since then. The people made like Goat Simulator and Satisfactory.
Oh,
been around
okay.
for a while.
I mean, those are good games, but get a better name, Coffee Stain.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
Take a second pass at it.
But Middle-earth Enterprises, like, they're just like, okay, well, we're just going to name it after our biggest IP we still own.
Yep.
And so this will be Crystal Dynamics, Eidos Montreal, so Tomb Raider and Deus Ex, Dam Buster Studios, Tripwire Interactive, Warhorse Studios, and something called Flying Wild Hog, which I have never heard of.
Flying Wild Hog? What have they done?
I have no idea. So yeah, that's what they're all going to be listed separately as different companies on NASDAQ and the stock exchange and all that crap.
Okay.
So this is not like some parent company, junior company thing. This is like a full explosion. It's interesting. I wonder, because I know there's some stuff in here that they don't mention. Like I know, like they mentioned they bought Dark Horse a few years ago, so Dark Horse Comics. I wonder what the IP that Dark Horse owns, is that going with the core board game group, or is that going to be a video game group thing?
They bought the IP rights from the comics, or they bought Dark Horse?
They bought Dark Horse, and obviously Dark Horse would have some of their own IP. So is that going to Asmodee, or is that going to go to Middle-earth and Friends? God.
This is a little confusing.
Yeah.
By the way, Flying Wild Hog, it looks like their main claim to fame is the Shadow Warrior series. They also did Evil West.
Yeah. No, those are good games.
So, yeah. Trek to Yomai was on there. I haven't played that, but it looks really cool. That might be one I check out at some point.
So, that's interesting.
That's all very interesting. I don't know.
Yeah, this reminds me of like when, like, was it Interplay was buying people up, or was it Infogrames back in like the 90s? And then they imploded, and I guess THQ did the same thing. Ironic, because Embracer Group originally was called THQ Nordic, because they bought the name for THQ. I have to say, I kind of expected something like this to happen, but this is a little more organized than I assumed. I thought they would kind of just keep selling off parts of them until they just died.
So interesting. I didn't know that the Embracer Group had anything to do with Deep Rock Galactic. I guess that's going over to Coffee Stain and Friends.
Yeah.
And I have to imagine that means Deep Rock Galactic Survivors is part of their whole thing. And I don't know if I've said a lot about that, but it's no Vampire Survivors. I'll tell you that much. I am not enjoying it in the same way.
Now, Coffee Stain, they had like I think they maybe even bought some indie studios before they got bought by Embracer. Like I think Valheim is also is made by a company they own.
I'm very excited to play that when it's finished. I've owned it for a few years now.
I know both Coffee Stain and the developers of Valheim are both based in Skövde, which is this little town in the middle of nowhere in Sweden. Interesting. I guess all three of these companies will be Swedish companies then, since they're all going to be listed on the Stockholm Stock Exchange.
All right.
So interesting to see where that goes. But yeah, this is as they say, a developing story that was announced right before we started recording, basically.
I mean, to be fair, any given day, if you type in Embracer Group into the Google box, like, you're going to get something back.
Yeah, for 7 years, it was like, oh, look, they bought something. And then now it's like, oh, look, they're fired
selling
someone.
Things and firing a lot of people. And then they're like, all right, we're not going to fire people anymore. And they're technically right because they don't exist anymore.
It's like the rise and fall. Yeah, exactly, right? They said they're going to not fire any more people. It's like, no.
Asmodee might, but that's not us. I see what you did there.
It's like they saw the rise and fall storyline, and they were like, no, let's just skip. It's just rise and fall. There's nothing in the middle, right? It's just like a peak.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of Nordic video game fiascos, City Skylines II, which I briefly mentioned previously about, they released a DLC for Skylines that was pretty poorly received.
Mm-hmm.
And they have decided to give it it was so bad they gave it to everyone for free.
And refunded the people who bought it?
Yes, so you can
good.
Exactly. If you bought it, it's been refunded. It's now included as part of the main game for everyone else. If you were like me and bought it as part of the Ultimate Edition, you will get 3 content creator packs for free sometime during the next year. They have said that they have paused all development on DLC until 2025 while they work on stabilizing and patching the game. They will release assets this year, but they will all be free assets. It's all free LC until 2025. And they are continuing to have conversations with like creators and stuff like that, like the YouTubers that basically make this game like a thing.
Mm-hmm.
They said that we're going to focus on improving the base game, modding tools, and changing our priorities for the following year. So that's good. I'm happy to hear that. Not that I think I'm also something of a City Skylines 2 apologist, and that I think it's not as bad as a lot of the crap it gets, but it does need to be. This is not City Skylines 2. It feels like City Skylines 1.5, really, and they can do better. So looking forward to seeing what that looks like as the year progresses. Also, I guess I don't feel as bad for buying that Ultimate Edition thing, but to be honest, I forgot I had done that. So, but yeah, that's all I've got for news. I know I just kind of spouted it at you, but
no, that's good. We're doing a double record this week, so there will be more news to follow later in the week. Yeah. That'll be for the next week, because that's how time works so far.
But do you have any news?
I don't have any news. I do have a couple announcements since we're going to get this turned around pretty quick. This will be out the same week we're recording. We do have some game releases coming out this week. Both on the 26th, we've got Stellar Blade that's going to be coming out, which now that I have my PS5, I might actually try it out. So it looks like it's just their answer to the Bayonetta series, or like some, mix between that and Devil May Cry, which already is kind of like Bayonetta, just without tits.
Yeah. Well,
right?
who's making it?
I think it's just a Sony in-house game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Pretty sure it's
Shift Up.
No, Shift Up. So I've never heard of them. I don't know what they do.
Me neither.
South Korean.
This is their only game.
Company.
Looks like they've been around for 10 years. But this is their first game. They probably are one of those like Go Studios that just goes in and finishes stuff. And
Yeah, maybe they were bought by Sony 3 years ago. Anywho, I'm interested in it, but I've never been able to really like. I loved the Devil May Cry series. At least the first 3 games I thought were really well done. Did not like the Bayonetta series.
Really?
Couldn't get into it. I mean, part of it was it just felt overly pervy for no reason. And it like, for being on a platform that is meant to be taken on the go, it's never a game I would ever play in public, ever. Like, just hands down not doing it.
Oh, I never... I guess I forgot that they released on the Switch. I mean, I played it on the Wii and then later on
That's
my
fair.
PC.
That's fair. I have the whole series on the Switch, but...
No, I think with Bayonetta, not to like... I mean, I like Bayonetta more than I like Devil May Cry just because I think it's got a sense of humor about itself that I enjoy.
Sure.
But it's also like... I may come off as being perhaps prudish on this podcast because I complain about stuff. But like, I feel like Bayonetta is like one of the few instances of like a positive depiction of like sexual exploitation in that like... She's a grown-ass woman who just kind of wants to be a sexy murder nun. Like, it's not even...
Yeah.
It's not even anything. It's like there's no exploitation. She is completely the one in charge of everything.
Oh, sure.
You know? So, like, I guess to me, like, I never felt like that's as pervy as a lot of other things. But I could explain... I could see not wanting to play it on the bus, certainly.
Because I'd have to explain all of that to someone so that they don't think different of me. Like, that's the thing.
Fair.
I mean, combat-wise, the combat was always fun in it. I like the time slowdown mechanics that were, I think, present in both of them for perfect dodges. But there's some really fun mechanics to it that I would have liked to have seen in a Devil May Cry game. There's something about the Devil May Cry universe that I found more appealing than Bayonetta. But I'm curious to check out Stellar Blade because I don't know. It's supposed to be some like post-Earth. You're going through the remnants of what once was Earth kind of storyline to it. I haven't looked too deep into it because I want to be a little surprised, but very excited to check it out. So
Speaking
I'll be doing
of post-Earth stuff.
Speaking of post-Earth stuff, it's a theme. From the game we played today to the next one, which is Sandland, Akira Toriyama's, I guess, possibly one of his final works, because he did help work on this game itself, worked on the direction for it. I mean, he created the whole Sandland world.
This is one of his better selling manga. Yeah, exactly, from what I understand, but I don't think it's ever gotten an anime adaptation.
I feel like it might have.
Okay, at least if it has, it hasn't been... I've never seen it in the West. I mean, not that I
there was
anime.
A film for it. We'll watch it at some point.
But no, I'm very excited for that. Very Mad Max. You know, if Dragon Quest and Mad Max had a weird child,
yes,
this would be Sandland.
You've got it exactly. Like, it's very Akira Toriyama. So especially since his passing, this is something I'm very excited to get into, and like I want to see his vision come to life in the form of a video game. I'm really excited for it. So, and also the latest trailer that came out for it with Darude Sandstorm.
Yeah,
like just they fucking nailed it. Good job, people.
I know that's like old memes now, but it's still one of the good ones. I don't know.
Yes. The fact that Bandai Namco on their own like trailer announcement was like, song title, please.
It feels like when Japanese studios are like trying to do PR in the West, they always play it very safe. Like they don't like, and I get that. Like you don't want to like go wrong. Like there's a lot of mistranslation and stuff like that. So it's interesting when they do try and do something pretty nuanced and witty like that. I mean, witty to a certain definition of witty, but no, I'm looking forward to that. Speaking of post-apocalyptic stuff, I talked about Fallout London. last week.
Right.
So they announced that their release would be the 26th. They have since pushed that back because Bethesda has announced that they will be actually patching Fallout 4 for the first time in 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
The game that the mod would be based off of on the 25th, the day before.
It feels very intentional.
It feels very intentional. I mean, I know it's probably because the TV show just came out,
Of course,
and that's a Tuesday or whatever. So I don't know that it was 100% intentional, but it feels very intentional. I know that some people who worked on Fallout London now work for Bethesda. So like,
the thing I'm most upset about was the Fallout TV series came out. It's a banger. And it got me playing a lot of Fallout again. So I've gotten really deep back into Fallout 76. Like my dude's like 110 now, level wise. Like I'm getting up there in levels. Almost got all my T65 power armor. It's looking very nice. But I was like, well, I also like Fallout 4. So let me reinstall Fallout 4. Let me get the mod lists going. And then I saw that announcement, and I was like, oh, script extender is going to be fucked. So until script extender gets fixed, none of this is going to exist as mods for this update. So I'm excited for the HD update, but I'm not excited. I don't know. Like, I wish they collaborated with these people more often, or at all.
Gave them a heads up.
Ever. Yeah, so they could have kind of been working on that. Like, hey, here's just a little, like, help to like have script extender ready to go because that's the big part of this community. Or just let them know,
like, we are going to be updating this X day. Maybe, let people know that it's going to take a little longer.
They're also doing the thing that they do where a lot of the like more popular mods are just getting brought into the game.
Well, they're not popular. They're bringing in their creative, like the creation.
Right.
Like it's basically DLC that they're merging with the main game, but it's it's like modder made DLC. Mm-hmm. So the people who made them are getting paid and getting credit for. Unlike some companies they'll just take like, oh, you made a patch for our game? It's our patch now. Bethesda's a little nicer than that, at least in this instance.
Yeah. I don't know. I just want them to start working on Fallout 5.
I'm content with. I mean, Fallout 4. Like I said, my goal is just seeing what London looks like, and
I am excited for New
London.
London.
See where things. Is it New London or is it like I put Fallen London in the show notes, but then you put New London.
I
and
thought
then I'm
it was
like,
New
is
London.
I think it's just London. Also, you also put Falolo. You may have misspelled Fallout in the thumbnail.
What?
But,
I don't misspell anything ever, and if you ever catch a misspell, that's your brain, not mine.
There's definitely only 2 L's in Fallout, but
how many L's did I put?
3.
Well, I got a new keyboard last week, so hopefully that'll fix things. The other one was sticking a little bit.
No, it just adds character, It's a little, maybe someone will write in and complain. All right. So what you've been playing this week besides Fallout 76, Mike?
No, I've been playing Fallout 76. No, I've just been playing a lot of Fallout 76. I mean, I'm always playing Helldivers. They came out with a new Warbond pack. I haven't unlocked everything in it yet, but I got to the final tier of it. So it's happening. I'm getting not burnt out on the game. I'm just ready for the next thing. They still haven't brought in the Illuminate, which I know is going to happen at some point.
What's that?
They've been doing, they're like the alien race of versus like being Terminator bots or Starship Trooper bugs. They're like they're like the Protoss. They look a lot like the Protoss. They have psychic abilities. They're the Protoss.
Not Predators.
No, not Predator style. But the campaign in Helldivers for the last month has been very automaton themed. And I found myself ignoring the mission objectives for the week or however long we had time-wise, and going and just fighting bugs for a while. I just wanted to go fight some Terminids. It's a different vibe of the game. It's a lot more fun, and things are starting to feel more and more repetitive, and I don't want that to happen this early in to their life cycle. So I'm really excited
take a break
for something.
with a live service game,
Yeah. I'm just excited for a new faction to come into play. I'm very curious if, because of the way they work psychically, if there's going to be, at least on the bug side, any crossover where you might see mixed troops, where like they've used the bugs, so you might have some Illumina and bugs on the same planet together.
You have to plug your controller into port 2 in order to finish the fight.
I'm not using a controller, but yes, they do things weird like that. Like your call-in for stratagems will be all mixed up. In the first game, they're probably not going to do that. In this one, it would be pretty wild. But in the first game, all of your controls would get reversed, like under certain psychic effects, things like that.
I love that. I love it when games do that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, especially when you're playing in a squad with a team. Like in the first game, it was isometric, so you had a low ground and a high ground, like standing and crouched. And you could shoot over each other if you're communicating, but like when that stuff happened, you would just accidentally blast away your entire team, like thinking you were going in one direction and going in another. And be like, oh no, I'm sorry.
To me.
It was a lot of fun. So that's what I'm excited for Helldivers, and I'm taking a little breaky from it until I see some new things come into it that really excite me. Yeah.
Yeah, I too tried to play Fallout 76. I tried. I can't. I played like 3 hours, which was more than slightly less than the time it took to download. I just can't get into it. Like I'm so into like the Fallout 4's little quirks and stuff like that like switching, like just the fact that I can't change a lot of keybinds drives me nuts, and like everything's just slightly off. Like I hate that like the quick select button is like my scroll wheel. Like I don't want that. I hate that, but like I have to, because like there's just, if this was a different game entirely that didn't just feel like Fallout 4 Online, it wouldn't bother me. But because it's so similar to Fallout 4, every little thing that's slightly different drives me nuts.
See, and I play third person with a controller on that one, so like the D-pad's my quick select section. Like that feels all natural to me. Like controller wise, it feels like the scheme for that is the same as Fallout 4 mostly.
I could not. I don't know. I think I would probably have an aneurysm if I tried to play Fallout in the third person with a controller. That just, to me, that seems like impossible. But
well, I got to see my pretty power armor.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing, is I also don't do power armor builds that often. But I think that's a me problem, not a Fallout 76 problem. Something that wasn't a me problem. I downloaded this. I don't know if you call it a game. It's called Spirit Cities Lo-Fi Sessions. Okay. And it's kind of like this build your own lo-fi jazz to study and relax to game, but like you can make your own character and stuff like that. And I wasn't something that was really even on my radar until I read an article about it has like this kind of built-in like productivity aspect to it, like, you know, checklists and timers and stuff like that, so you can kind of like map out your day, make to-do lists. It'll tell you like, you know, you've been sitting for 20 minutes, that kind of thing. So like my idea was like, oh, okay, this sounds like I could actually use this. Like, and you can put your own music on there too, so it's not just like their built-in music. Like you can find your own music to put in there. So I'm like, okay, I'll put this on my laptop, and I'll have this running while I'm doing other stuff on my main computer. And after about 20 minutes, my computer crashed. I was like, okay, oh, weird. And then I did it again, same thing. Around 20 minutes in, it crashed, and then I realized my computer was like at like 103 degrees Celsius, like
holy
the core
shit.
temperature. Like the like I could have cooked a freaking egg on it. So my computer was overheating, and I think it's just like they've mentioned that they've patched it since then, but like I was so terrified once I realized what was going on. Like I don't know that I'll go back
Something's
to that.
melted inside.
I'm just like, oh no. Yeah, it does, like, I was like, it's just like this. There's no way this thing uses that much power. Like, my laptop should be able to handle it just fine. But I think it was probably like some kind of memory leak bug or something. I don't know.
Had to have, because I'm looking at like the recommended specs, and this is nothing.
Yeah, they mentioned in the most recent patch notes. Let me see what they said here. Added a distinct FPS cap option when the game is unfocused. Added a new screen resolution option. Setting it to a lower percentage will make the game a bit more blurry, but can drastically improve performance and reduce core temperature on laptops. Which I'm like, okay, like I don't know. It just seems like it can. Like I'd rather it says it does. So.
You could do what our buddy Nick used to do, which was prop his laptop up on a book with a fan right next to it, and sometimes he'd put like some ice in front of the fan just to help chill that air a little bit more.
When I used to have a laptop that the CPU was like right to the left of the touchpad, where you like rest your hand normally.
Oh, so it just burns the shit out of you.
Yeah. So
yeah.
I bought a pair of weightlifting gloves so I could play without like the palm of my hand burning.
Yes. just get your gloves on.
Yeah, so I'm like, I was like, this is, 10, 15 years ago, so I was like playing Assassin's Creed or whatever in the middle of the night with like my fingerless gloves on, and my roommate just walks in and he's like, what the fuck are you doing?
Yes, fingerless gloves, sweatpants, a torn shirt, like a gym shirt with the torn off sleeves, and a headband is how you're supposed to go into a gaming session like that.
Yeah, it was
fantastic.
It was a look. But it stopped my palm from like literally the skin was peeling off of like the
I had one too that was like unreasonably hot for that. Yeah, I don't get it. Like so many laptop designs, just they don't think about that shit, or they don't care.
I think they don't care. They want you to buy a new one every year or two, so but I've never had an overheating problem with this laptop at all until this game, which is what surprised me and scared me. So I can play Dreamlight Valley on this thing for 12 hours a day and not have a problem.
Right. Which how's that going? Are you still dreamlighting?
I dip in every once in a while. It's not like.
I told you it's just cozy. It's a way to turn off your brain.
Yeah. It's kind of like it's got to turn into like what in the past would have been my WoW thing. I'm just kind of like, I'm going to log in and do some dailies and then log out. Speaking of which, they've released a lot of like the alpha beta stuff for War Within that started kind of coming out now. A lot of like content creators have gotten access, and I don't know. I'm hype. I'm just like every other World of Warcraft expansion. I feel it, but we'll see where things go. I like the new
finally
Delves
dead to me.
system.
Like I tried Classic again for a while, and it's just like it's all. I've done it. I've done it all. I'm good.
That's probably healthy.
I don't want it to feel that like I'm still chasing that dragon of like a good MMO. Like an MMO that makes me feel excited again. And I'm wondering, is it just, have we passed that cycle of game? Like, are we past MMOs and we're now more like, shared server space on some kind of survival craft thing is like fine. Or these extraction shooters, is that good enough? Like, I don't know. There's Helldivers. Is it an MMO? We're all kind of working towards the same objectives, but...
Well, I think that certainly taps into something closer than most MMOs do. But I think like the reason why World of Warcraft and EverQuest and stuff like were so big at that time was because it was a way to socialize with people that didn't really exist to that extent. Like you had Instant Messenger and MySpace to a certain extent, but like it was just you could play a game and socialize with someone in World of Warcraft, and you couldn't do that really in anything else. Even in Call of Duty, like but you couldn't just like shoot the shit for 2 hours. Like, I guess you could sit in the lobby, but who the fuck wants to do that? You had like sessions and you need to like do stuff and murder each other, and World of Warcraft lets you hang, and there are a lot of ways to hang out with your friends online.
That's
so
true.
I think that like that's just not special anymore.
Yeah.
And of course you've seen it go much more single player because of that, because now people just want it to be their, like either it's their hyper competitive dungeon game or it's their cozy farming sim collect pets.
Their playground. Yeah.
Yeah.
Their own personal private playground. Yeah.
That I think Helldivers taps into something though, where it is that it gets that socialization, fuck around, have a good time aspect that most games don't. So, yeah, I don't think there ever will be the next WoW, because I think that the world has moved beyond the MMO as like the premier game to play online.
That's my worry, but man, I would love if something just clicked again like that. Like, just brought something fresh, but still was that same, I don't know, because then I start thinking like, well, there's going to be meta on rotations, and just maybe that time is nearing to an end.
It's okay. Sometimes you just have to let go.
Now I'm depressed. I'm going to have to go buy some miniatures.
I'm going to have to, look at more World of Warcraft leaks and stuff like that. Yeah, this is a short one. Sorry about that. A little bit shorter than we normally do, but I think a good amount of. It's all killer, no filler episode.
Hey, there you go. That's what we're usually shooting for, and we get about halfway there. So, mission accomplished. Pull the banner down.
Thanks for listening. If you like this, send us an email at thesavestatepodcast@gmail.com. Or contact us on Blue Sky at thesavestatepod.
Yeah, let us know if there's anything like you want us to play or talk about on here. Any topics or games to check out.
Or let us know if we spelled anything wrong in the thumbnail.
Let us know if your brain is seeing words incorrectly. Yes.
Or let us know ways to escape our contract with Scott Karatopoulos. A lawyer would be welcome.
Which, by the way, get well soon, Scott. Best of luck.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.
Bye. On this week's episode, we're talking about our generation. I mean, Umurangi Generation.
Talking about Umurangi Generation. It perfectly fits to the tune. You nailed it. You got it, bud. You go.
No, I think we'll do yours for the actual intro, and then I'll do my stupid shit at the end.
Okay, that's fine.